Welcome in episode number 75. We are wrapping up the SEC here for the 2024-25 season. We are out and about for the college football season. Week 0 is done, and we will reflect a little bit on that before we hop in here. But yes, we're going to cover the bottom half of the SEC, Missouri through the bottom. So we will give you that. Once again, joining me as usual is friend and co-host Zach Huffman here on a Be Happy Sunday. Zach, how are we doing today?
Doing good. We're doing good. Week 0 happened. Got to watch all of it. I did not stay up for the Delaware State Hawaii game, unfortunately. So if I'm a bad fan, I'm a bad fan.
Yeah, that's fair. I tuned in a little bit for the beginning just to see kind of how that game would go. I had Delaware State covering the points. I talked about that a few episodes ago, which they did. They did not lose by 40. They lost by, I think, 21 or 28, but it wasn't close.
I think it was 20. I think it was 28.
Yeah, 28. It wasn't close. And I had Nevada covering as well. They did more than just that. They gave SMU quite the scare. Speaking of scares, Georgia Tech and Florida State out there in Dublin Island and Aviva Stadium out there with all the lovely Leprechaun people. They put on a just drubbing, emotionally at least, for the most part, winning 24-21 on a last-second field goal. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets upsetting the number 10 team in the country. What was kind of your takeaway from Florida State dropping their season opener?
I was really focused on Georgia Tech's offensive line and their running backs. I mean, geez, that running game was just working the entire game, and that offensive line was just moving those bigger guys on the other side of on the ball in Florida State. I noticed that Florida State was just, especially DJ Uiagalelei, he just kind of terrible, honestly. He's, he had a high, like you probably saw the stats, 12 of 14 minus or negative yardage. They're not going to be a team that is competing for an ACC championship. Maybe that's an overreaction. It's week 0, but this Georgia Tech team maybe is a lot better than I'm giving them credit for.
Yeah, I watched this from most of it I watched, and I gotta say, I mean, as much as you're saying like, yeah, he played bad, Florida State didn't look good. Georgia Tech's offensive line and running backs, like you said, fantastic job by them getting the job done. But they almost blew that game as well. They're in the end, they're backing themselves up on the botch snap there late. Obviously able to get it back on the screen pass a play later. But, I mean, that was just kind of the way this game went, right? It was who was going to make the last mistake and whose defense is going to be able to keep the other out of scoring position after what seemed like a game where really neither offense really got something consistent going. But you went into the half with a tied game and you end up with a tied game. I just think it's an overreaction to say they wouldn't play for an ACC championship game. I think they're going to still be there. I'm even going to go out and say they're probably still going to win the ACC. I just think it was just a rough game for them. As far as Georgia Tech goes, I mean, what, eight win team maybe? I mean, 8-4. I mean, they're looking like a decent team. They're looking like someone that could end up rematching with Florida State in the end. I just don't know how high I am on Clemson yet. I don't know where kind of I stand with SMU and what they've got going out there in Dallas. I don't really know who else in the ACC I should be looking at to carry the proverbial torch into a possible college football playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at Miami, in there for that conference championship. You're probably looking at, and like you said, maybe even Georgia Tech, because they looked amazing, honestly. For most of the game, like you said, they did kind of blunder in the end there. That horrible fumble, just fumbling the snap all the way back. What was it? 20 yards
It was like a
almost.
loss of like 8 or something like that. Like I put him back at the 38-yard line after having what seemed to be like a gimme field goal. They ended up getting 11
Yeah.
yards back on a screen pass, so it didn't end up
Yeah,
hurting
beautiful
them.
play
But
call.
yeah, but if they, I mean, like I was saying, if someone tackles that guy immediately on that screen pass, I mean, you're looking at possibly having to punt there instead of attempting a 66-yard field goal. I mean, so really, and it's one of those things where Georgia Tech's not a team that wins a lot, so they haven't really. It's not one of those like act like you've been there before kind of things. I mean, what they do was what you saw, which was almost blow it in the end. That's kind of been their mantra
Yeah.
the last couple of seasons. So it didn't surprise probably any of the Georgia Tech faithful that they almost threw that thing away. Um, if you're a Florida State fan, I mean, like you said, Miami's kind of the one I left out there to kind of let you kind of spill on that because I know that you're really high on the Hurricanes this year. You really think this is kind of the year that Mario Cristobal and company kind of push for their playoff spot. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think overall just a really good start to the season as far as a good game to watch.
Yeah, that was honestly, it was just fantastic. Especially, all the ESPN people getting drunk on in Ireland. That was amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm there for that. I'm there for that, baby. Um,
Oh yeah.
and then we had Montana State and New Mexico. That game started off with New Mexico kind of jumping on top of uh, Montana State and having a substantial lead there late heading into the fourth quarter. And then here come the Bobcats. I believe that's what they are, right? The Bobcats.
I
Um,
think.
Something like that. Mountain Lions, Bobcats, Cougars, whatever. FCS greatness, as you would say out there in the Big Sky, coming out and throwing the football and getting the job done late, scoring a touchdown with under a minute to go to kind of come all the way back and outscore New Mexico, who had two third downs. Zach, two third downs, where the quarterback delivered a great ball and the wide receiver just straight up dropped it. I mean, both hands on the
Hmm.
football. Nobody really applying any defensive pressure, dropping the football. One of them possibly could have been a touchdown if he turns up the field and goes the distance. The other one, a slant route that's just off of the hands of the intended target with no one else around. Just unfortunate for the Lobos. Did you get to any chance to watch this game?
I did not tune into this one, unfortunately. Um, did have a few things going on Saturday, so I did not get to watch every game, but I did catch pretty much the entirety of Florida State and Georgia Tech, which was amazing.
Yeah. So
But
like
I did see the scores, and I was definitely keeping up with the scores of a lot of these games, though. Um, Looking at McNeese State, right? They kind of made a little comeback.
yeah, they looked okay. The Cowboys look good. Cowboys look decent. Um, I did not really get a chance to keep up with McNeese State. I was locked in to the Lobos for a while, and then shifted my attention over to SMU and the Mustangs playing Nevada. Nevada again, uh, jumping on top of SMU before SMU scored 16 straight in the fourth quarter to end that one. What was your takeaway from Preston, 0ner and company? I know you were high on them this season. I was kind of more hesitant. How you feeling now about the Mustangs after their close call in Reno?
Week zero. I think they're still a good team. But yeah, they definitely didn't look good because they won by what, 5?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Let me pull up the score. Let's see. Yeah, they won by 5, 29-24. Um, I didn't get a chance to catch this one either, but I mean, it looks like the offense was flowing pretty okay for SMU. Um, but I'm not so sure about the defense. I didn't. I mean, how did you feel about SMU's defense? I didn't get a chance
well,
to really see.
so the problem was Preston 0ner couldn't complete a pass in the first half at all. It was a
Oh, I see.
disaster. So all the work came in the second half for this SMU offense, and they were down pretty heavy there late. And Nevada was doing a good job of just keeping everything in front of them and making it hard on Preston 0ner and this offense to really get any rhythm until late in the fourth. I think they just kind of again one of those situations where Nevada, another team that's got to try to look like they've been there before, and I just don't think winning culture is kind of out there in Reno, and they just kind of let this one kind of slip through their fingers. But the better team did win. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think that was kind of the overall consensus that I felt over that game, and I was happy because Nevada covered, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the stats here, it seems like SMU could have had a much better job up front on the defensive front. Looks like Nevada got 148 rushing yards. Not a big fan. Not a big fan of that. So hopefully they tighten up throughout the season. But other than that, I mean, they looked like SMU looked like they played pretty well, except like you said, first half.
Yeah, the first half was ugly for Preston Stone, but he finished strong, and SMU finishes strong, and they get a single digit victory over the Wolfpack, and then of course the nightcap was Delaware State and Hawaii, and that one was not as lopsided as Vegas thought it was going to be as well. Vegas a little rusty coming into the season, kind of overvaluing the offensive output of some of these teams. SMU was a 28-point favorite. They only win by 5. Hawaii is a 38.5-point favorite. They win by 28. And Montana State was a 14.5-point favorite over New Mexico, and they squeak by the Lobos. So, and of course, the biggest one was Florida State minus 10.5, and Georgia Tech wins straight up by 3. So, I mean, I think that Vegas a little rusty. Um, and maybe again, we proved to America that the preseason polls should not come out at all, and we should just start ranking teams week 4, 5, and go from there.
Yeah, because they just screw teams over at the end of the day. Because if you ultimately if you're preseason ranked number 10 and you lose to an unranked team in week 0, that's worse than being unranked and losing to an unranked team in week 0. I mean, it's a worse stain on your record. It makes you seem like you were way too good to be there artificially, because that was just some opinion of some pollsters who have mostly no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, we see it every year. We see top teams fall from spots they're supposed to start at, and some fall completely out. Some just end up dwelling in the basement. We'll see how Florida State responds and kind of where if they can climb back into that 11-12 spot, maybe that 10 spot. They're going to need to win the ACC championship to do that, I would think. If they're going to have any consideration here, and then other teams are going to have to not look as good or as dominant. Um, so that's just kind of your week 0 wrap up. I mean, not really much to talk about. Week 1's kind of where things get good. Um, but
Oh yeah,
speaking of getting good, it just means more. It just means more.
it just means more in the SEC.
This means more in the SEC. So let's get started. Second half of the conference here, bottom half, last teams here for win totals this season. And let's start out with Missouri. Missouri, the Tigers. Yeah, not a fan. I'm gonna be honest, not a fan myself. Um, 9.5 is the number CBS gives. We're going off the CBS here. As far as the sports books are concerned, it's 9.5 all the way through, unless you're using Valley Sports or Bet Rivers, where it's 8.5. Obviously, this offense for Missouri is highly touted. They've got a very good wide receiver. Their quarterback is definitely somebody that NFL scouts are keeping their eye on this year. I don't think it's a first round pick kind of situation, but they're definitely taking a look. Um, and overall, the coach, Clyde Drinkwitz is pretty good. Uh, CBS has them, I believe, going 10-2 here. They're picking the overs. Zach, how do you feel about the Tigers coming into the season here?
I'm looking at the well, I'm thinking they're 8-4 at the end of this year, and I don't think they're competing for an SEC championship like the Missouri fans would like you to believe. Um, let's see. I mean, they win against Murray State. They get a win against Buffalo. They get a win against Boston College. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Massachusetts. I think they lose to Auburn. They lose to Oklahoma. They beat South Carolina. They beat Mississippi State. They beat Arkansas. They lose to Texas A&M, and they lose to Alabama.
I don't have any problems with any of that. I might replace Auburn with Arkansas. Um,
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be one of those, along with Oklahoma. I do think Oklahoma beat this team. I know a lot of people talk about the defensive lineman, the young one that they stole away from OU supposedly, was Williams the Waneri.
Watery.
Yeah, I mean mean, apparently they're pretty high on him. I don't think one guy is going to turn that defense around, though. They're going to need more than just him to carry the load defensively. I think 8-4 is kind of a good spot here. Uh, I mean, 9-3 is probably your ceiling. I don't see 10 here. I really don't. I think they drop one of these other ones. I think 9 is the ceiling, so it's under. I mean, it's under for me. Um,
Thunder for me.
I don't have a problem saying that, and I think that will just be indicated by the end of it.
Oh yeah.
And now on to a team whose win total is 7.5, coming into their first season in the SEC. It's the Oklahoma Sooners, and everybody has them at 7.5 except for Bally and Bet Rivers that have them at 6.5. And you know, CBS has the under here. They've got them going 7-5. As their line is 7.5 here. Jackson Arnold, first year being a starting quarterback. Wide receiver room is very, very strong. Andrell Anthony going to be out for a few weeks to start the season, but other than that, a lot of other burners they've got in those stables there in Norman. Running back room, very deep freshman Taylor Tatum looking like he could be the real deal. He's definitely going to get some touches early on this season, so we'll see what he kind of brings to the table, along with the pairing of Javante Barnes
Gavin
and
Sawchuk.
Gavin Sawchuk. Yep. But right here, they've got them beating Temple, Houston, Tulane, Tennessee, Auburn, South Carolina, and Maine, and their losses at Texas, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. Give me your thoughts, Zach. Here, 7-5 is what CBS has here. You've got them beating Missouri, so you've got at least 8-4 here. What's your overall consensus of the Sooners' inaugural season here in the Southeastern Conference?
Obviously I'm high on the Sooners, right? Always will be, but I have them going 10-2. And I think that's honestly a pretty dull prediction on my part. Usually I would have them going undefeated. But I think that this team is going to lose to Ole Miss and they're going to lose to Alabama. One, we have to play at Oxford. I don't like that, and that's just Alabama. I just think they're going to have the better guys in the trenches. They're going to be bigger, and that's just the truth. Now, I do think OU has some surprising things coming up front. New roster depth chart was released today for this upcoming week. We have Jaden Jackson starting at defensive tackle, true freshman getting the starting spot. Apparently, according to rumors from training camp, he is possibly an All-American true freshman defensive tackle. They have him starting at the number one position there at D tackle. So he's about to hopefully light it up and maybe help us compete in the trenches a little bit more. But yeah, I think this team can beat everyone that was mentioned already: Temple, Houston, Tulane, Tennessee, Auburn, South Carolina, Maine, along with them beating Texas, Missouri, and LSU.
I can see the Texas, I can see the Missouri. I definitely think Texas, now that they're without some of their running backs, I think they're a little more vulnerable offensively. Might be a little more one-dimensional than previously thought coming into the season. I'm not saying they're not going to have a running game. I just don't think it's going to be as good, and they're probably going to ask Quinn Ewers more of his arm this season than they probably anticipated coming into the year with what they had in the running back room. So that may change kind of the way teams defend them, and they may end up looking worse than they are. I I think 9-3 is probably realistic. The LSU game kind of gives me a little trouble. It's on the road. It's a tough environment there. I think for a freshman quarterback to go down there and win would be huge. But I just
It's late in the season too.
yeah,
It's like the last game.
yeah, it's late, so you're gonna have more of a chance of looking better, as most teams do get better as the season progresses. Rarely see teams go backwards if not for injury. Um, so I think 9-3 is realistic here. I think you take the over though for sure. This is at least an 8-win team. I think 8 is definitely the floor here. Um, well, I mean, realistically, the floor is probably 6, right? I mean, that would be probably the floor. That would be disastrous, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that I think 8 is probably where I would put the floor. So take the over here. I feel comfortable if you can find it at 6.5 on Bally and Bet Rivers to go ahead and slam that. I think it's free.
Yeah, obviously. And I think the OU just has I mean, obviously there are questions at the O line, but I think we just have unproven guys. we have guys that haven't really got a lot of playing time yet, and I think that if the O line is looking good, obviously we're gonna have to wait a couple weeks until they play some real talent. But I think we can see if the offensive line is coached up well, this team could be dangerous. I mean, we have one of the best receiving corps in the nation. We have Jackson Arnold, who a lot of people aren't sure about, but hopefully he's kind of cleaned up the turnovers that we saw against Arizona, and that whatever stupid fucking bowl we were in. And I think they seriously are going to compete this year. I think this is a playoff team.
It'll be interesting to see if that's how the season unfolds, but definitely high hopes in Norman for the first season in the SEC for the Sooners. And we move on to Ole Miss, where CBS is definitely glazing them up. They've got them going 11-1. Their only loss being Georgia. Most sportsbooks have them at 9.5. CBS has them at 9.5 as well. Bet Rivers and Bally Sports has them at 10.5. So they're very high on Ole Miss. They have them beating Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, and Mississippi State. Now, obviously, you agree with the loss against your Sooners there being on the list here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say they lose to LSU, and probably I'm even going to throw this one out here. I think they lose to Florida. I think Florida.
No, my God.
I think Florida gets them. I think
no,
Florida
stop it. You're just trying to be different. This is an 11-1 team. This is a team that's stupid talented. I don't understand what you have against this team. They're going to be amazing on offense. Obviously, with Lane Kiffin coaching them, they're going to be fantastic. They're going to have to go through a worse. I think this is a serious playoff team. I think we're looking at like number 6 or 7 at the end of the season here. I don't think they're going to win the SEC outright. I think that's obviously going to be Georgia, but I think Ole Miss is probably competing for that championship in Atlanta. I think CBS is right. I think they only lose to Georgia.
I don't know, man. I mean, you're right about like what they are, right? You're right about them being super talented and all this, but like they've never been able to finish, man. Like where's the finishing? Like I mean Kentucky.
I mean it's just time. Like, I think it's just time. I think it's just Lane Kiffin kind of just needing a little bit of time to, become the head coach he truly is. And like what were they last season? 10-2. I mean they've been gradually improving. I think they finished 10-2 last season. This team is serious contention for a college football top 4 spot. I mean they could win the SEC.
I mean,
I don't think they will, but they could.
Yeah, I'm thinking 9-3 here. This is 9. This is typical Ole Miss glazing. I just don't see it, man. I mean, they've never been able to finish the deal. And I know that you're saying like now they're primed and ready. But what the most Ole Miss thing to do is to choke it off here. I mean, like this is the year, right? Like this is the year we believe in Ole Miss, and they're just gonna go ahead that egg. I mean 9-3 is not bad. I think 9-3 could get you into a respectable bowl game. You're not making the playoff at 9-3. I would guarantee you that. Especially if OU's going 10-2, like you said, and Georgia's gonna go run the table, like you think. I mean, we know we kind of butt heads on that whole thing. Yeah, I mean, 9's probably the floor. I think 9's the floor here. I just think Kentucky gets them or Florida gets them. Georgia probably gets them, and I'm kind of against you. I think OU beats them. I think that's one of those games where I think OU's got them, even on the road. I think I just think they're a better team. I don't think Ole Miss is as good as people think they are. I think they're going to get exposed this season. I know that's probably a hot take, but I just honestly, I mean, if 9-3 is exposed, I mean, let me be exposed. That's all I can say. But I mean, like, I think that's probably where you're looking at.
I mean, I hope you're right. I mean, I really do. I hope that you're right and that OU does end up beating Ole Miss, and we might end up being an 11-1 team. That would be sick. Just switching back to Oklahoma real quick. I don't mean to be a super fan here, but this team could go 12-0, is what you're saying.
I, I, I mean, the Bama game is a rough one. I think that's the one you've got to circle as being
And
good.
Norman, though.
I mean, it gives you a chance. You got a chance. I just think, like you said,
There
the
we go.
trenches are probably just too good. In the end, I think that's going to be the difference, even if they gel by that time, because that's like a mid-season game, right? So I mean, you're going to have some weeks under your
Alabama's towards
belt.
the end of the season.
Yeah.
I
So I
think
mean,
Alabama's early November.
yeah. So it's I mean that's in the back half. So I mean you've got a chance there, especially if the injury bug gets them. I think that would help you out a bunch. I just think that
Yeah, right.
I think that's the game you would circle as probably being the most for sure loss on your schedule. I don't know. I just don't believe in Ole Miss
Okay,
that much.
that's fair. That's fair. But how about a team that I believe in maybe a little bit more than most? That's South Carolina.
Okay, CBS has them at
I'm
five and a
I'm a pretty
half.
bit.
Yeah, we could a good segue. I applaud of a good segue there. 5.5 is what they've got for the number for the South Carolina Game Chickens. If you go and look at the sports books, they've got them kind of around that same number, 5.5 all the way through, and they do have it all the way through. Even Bet Rivers and Bally Sports has them at 5.5. CBS has them going 4-8. They're picking the under here for the Game Chickens. Tell me what you like about them.
Listen, I'm a fan of South Carolina. I think that Shane Beamer is a good coach. I just I like Beamer. Now the problem with the South Carolina this season is that they have a fucking difficult schedule. I mean, their schedule is dog shit. Now, I say I'm high on South Carolina, but when I say high, I think that I mean, sadly, this is probably a 5-win team. But I mean, there's some people picking them to go 10-2, and I don't understand that when you're looking at the schedule. I mean, I don't see where you get more than five wins, but I am a fan of South Carolina, and I hope that they do overperform. And if they do overperform, I think they're going to have those wins at Kentucky. They're going to have those wins at Texas A&M. If they could beat Missouri, um, maybe ceiling 8.
Yeah, ceiling 8. I think Kentucky, A&M, and Missouri and Clemson are probably the ones I would circle just because they seem to be giving Clemson fits the last couple of years. I know Spencer Rattler was a big part of that, but I think that Lenora Sellers is not bad. Not bad. I've
Yeah,
heard good things about him. People think his inexperience is going to be kind of downfall of the offense for South Carolina. I just think overall the team is really hurting from what they lost last season. Um, and again, like you said, the schedule's super rough. On the road at Kentucky is a tough one. On the road in Tuscaloosa and Norman, that's rough. And on the road in Clemson, not looking good there. I mean, Old Dominion, Akron, Vandy, and Wofford, those, like you said, are probably wins. But I think under 5.5 is probably on the nose. I mean, got him at 5 with the ceiling being
I think
8.
so.
Um, yeah, I think 5 wins. I think you steal one of these here on the losses column here on CBS. I think you steal one. I think it's one of those three we mentioned. Kentucky, A&M, or probably ends up being a W and not an L. But you got to watch out for Vandy on the road. That one could be one that you kind of swap where you're like, oh crap. So we'll see how
Oh,
that goes. I
God.
think that'll be a good measuring stick for how bad or good this team is. Might be a good game to watch because it'll be close, but I don't think it'll be pretty football. Um, yeah, I would pick the under here. I think this is a 5-win team.
Yep, 100%. Now, now we go to probably the weirdest team to predict in the SEC this season, Tennessee. This one's tough.
Yeah, Tennessee CBS has a 9.5 wins. They're picking the over and having them go 10-2 this season. If you look at the sports books, they kind of have again very similar lines to what CBS is putting out. Um, Actually, it's gone significantly down. We've got 8.5 on a couple of these, 7.5 on Bet Rivers and Valley Sports, and 9.5 um, at Caesar's Palace. So yeah, all over the place. our sports books anywhere from 7.5 to 9.5. Uh, again, it really depends on how good this quarterback is, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But I think we're looking at a 9-win team probably. I you're looking at Florida and Alabama. Those are probably some interesting games. Alabama, I think there's probably a loss there. Like we already said it's a loss in Norman, a loss in Athens. Thinking we're probably a loss to Alabama at home. I don't think that this team is going to end up with the perfect home record. But obviously, Josh Heupel kind of has it's bad time on the road. So I think probably ceiling for this team is likely 10-2.
Yeah, the ceiling is exactly what CBS has 10-2 with losses at Oklahoma and Georgia. That's your ceiling. I think a loss to Alabama and Kentucky is probably more likely than Alabama and Florida because I think Kentucky's better than Florida. Um,
That's true.
yeah,
That's
I,
that
I think
I
that
can
would
give you that.
I think, but any of those three really are not going to be easy for Tennessee. I don't think any of those games are gimmies. All those teams are filled with athletes that can hang. It's just whether or not this young quarterback is as good as people think he's going to be. I'm gonna pick the under 9.5. I think this is just a 9-win team. I think this is 9-3. They drop Alabama for sure. I think it's Alabama, Oklahoma, and Georgia as their three losses. If you can find this
Yep.
line at 7.5, slam it. I know Bally and Bet Rivers is giving you that line. Go ahead and just slam the F out of that. I think that's a great line number you can get for these Volunteers, and they'll be in consideration for the SEC championship if they can even go 9-3. Because I think more likely that teams that we mentioned previously here are going to go 9-3 than these 10-2, 11-1s that we're saying. I think you could have Ole Miss going 9-3, you could have OU going 9-3, you could have this team going 9-3. There could be some tiebreaker scenarios here happening with how this conference could cannibalize itself.
Yeah, 100%.
And
I think the team that's going to lose a little bit more than people won't think as well as Texas.
yeah, that brings us to the Longhorns here. The line CBS had at the time of this article is 10.5. Since then, they've lost a couple running backs. We'll see if the lines have moved anywhere that I'm looking at. 10.5 across the board. We have 9.5 at Bally and Bet Rivers. We have 10 at MGM and Caesars Palace. Uh, DraftKings and FanDuel have them at 10.5 still, even with the injuries to two of the four running backs they've got on the roster. CBS has them going 11-1 with their only loss being Georgia. Of course, we agree Oklahoma will be another loss, so we're looking at least 10-2 here. So we're picking the under 10.5 here for sure for the Longhorns. Could it be worse than 10-2, Zach?
Oh, I believe so. I believe you might be looking at a team that, and in all honesty, this is an 8-win team.
I mean, I
And
think,
and I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm 100% serious. We already said they lose to Oklahoma, they lose to Georgia. Um, they're losing to Michigan. I don't know
yeah,
why people think that they're going to beat Michigan
yep,
in Ann Arbor.
yep.
That's not
That's an
happening. They're
L.
losing to Michigan,
Yeah.
and I think they're losing it. I think they're losing at Kyle Field to A&M.
Yeah, that's gonna be rowdy. If it's not A&M, I would definitely circle uh, the Kentucky game. Even Florida is not going to be easy, even though those are home games. But I think at Kyle Field is the toughest of those three that I just mentioned. But 8-4 with losses at Oklahoma, Georgia, Michigan, and you think Texas A&M. I think you replace Texas A&M with Kentucky or Florida probably. Texas A&M, I don't know how I really feel about them yet. But that's gonna be a dogfight for sure. That play's gonna be rowdier than F.
Oh yeah.
Boy, what I would pay to be at that game would be nuts. I might empty the old piggy bank. This might be the year. But it's definitely under 10.5. I don't think this is an 11-win team. I think if you think it's an 11-win team, especially now that the running backs are hurt, I think you're out of your mind.
Yeah, I think the media is just high on Texas as they always are. So don't listen to them and bet the under. Just you're not going to see a line that's probably better than 10.
Yeah, I mean, 10.5 is who I've got on here, and then you have two at 10, and then two at 9.5, which I would
Oh
be.
yeah, 9.5. Wow.
I mean, it's that's I mean, that's
Probably
reality
stay
though.
away from that one.
Yeah, Bally and Bet River is getting crazy. out here with these win totals. But that leads us to the team I'm not so sure about, Texas A&M. They've got uh, them going, looks to be 8 and
Eight,
3, or is that 8 and 3?
8-4,
8 and 4.
eight and
Oh yeah,
four.
that's 8 and 4. Um, the line is 8.5. What CBS has. As far as the sports books go, Zach, Texas A&M 8.5 all the way across, except for Bet Rivers and Valley that have them at 7.5. Um, again, not a tough schedule here. McNeese, like you said, a little bit better than you think they are, but I don't think they beat Texas A&M. On the road at Florida is going to be a tough one for them. Bowling Green should be a win. Arkansas should be a win. Missouri, they've got them beating the Tigers. I don't disagree with that. On the road at Mississippi State's a win. South Carolina on the road, that might be a little difficult. New Mexico State at home is a win. And losses at Notre Dame, LSU, Auburn, and Texas. How do you feel about the way the schedule kind of shakes out for the Aggies?
I'm looking at it. I'm thinking that this could be this could I think this could be a 9-3 team. I think that's a ceiling though, and I'm looking at Auburn mostly, and thinking that that could probably be a win for A&M. But I'm also thinking Notre Dame. If they can pull off a win against Notre Dame early here in the season, then this team automatically shoots into playoff contention. So let's look out for that. But other than that, yeah, I think we're looking at probably ceiling 9-3. This team, if there's some weird stuff that happens, could end up in the playoffs.
I mean, so you're thinking over 8.5?
I'd probably pick an over eight. I don't know. I'm probably staying away from 8.5, but if it's set at 7.5 or it's set at 8, I'll probably hit the over. I don't know.
We got two at 7.5. You can find those 7.5 lines at Valley and Bet Rivers. Um, those look to be pretty good lines there to pick the over. I kind of agree with you here. I think nine's the ceiling here. The floor is probably 6-6. Um, I think you could easily lose to Missouri and you could lose to Florida. I think those are the two I would circle that would be ones that could join Notre Dame, LSU, Auburn, and Texas. But yeah, I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure about what I think about uh, former Duke head coach Mike Elko being the head coach for the Aggies. I don't know and be able to turn what they've got going right now into something special. But like you said, the Notre Dame game is going to be a good measuring stick for kind of where we see this going. But um, I would probably also pick the under 8.5.
Oh, wow.
And that
Love to see
leads
it.
us to one of the worst teams in college football, the Vanderbilt Commodores. 2.5 is the line that CBS has for the Vanderbilt Commodores. If you look at the sports books for Vanderbilt, you're gonna have to scroll all the way down to the bottom here. 2.5 on two of the sports books. The rest of them have them at 3. Um, Alcorn State, Georgia State, Ball State are the 3 wins that CBS has. They have the over 2.5. I also believe in the over for Vanderbilt here, but I think this could be a 4-win team. We could be stretching it a little bit more. I think there's one on here that they could snatch up, and the one that I'm looking at is probably South Carolina. That's a home game for the Vanderbilt Commodores, and as good as I feel about South Carolina, um, it's early in the season, and we'll see how uh, they look. But overall, they could even lose to Georgia State. To be honest, this could be a 2-win team.
Yeah, I'm thinking they might lose to Georgia State, especially at Georgia State. So I'm probably picking the under 2.5. But if you can find a line I would say if you can find a 3.5 line, slam the under.
Yeah, no 3.5s. I'm looking at 3 is the highest I've got. But if you can find it, like you said, I would slam the under 3.5 for sure. I think 4 wins is probably a dream ceiling for the Commodores, and 2 wins is probably something they could be more likely looking at the end of the season. Just a rough ending to the SEC here, Zach. Um, but I think that means that it's time. I think that it means that it's time for our first week of picks, baby. We're making the picks.
Oh yeah.
$100 in the bank right now, folks. We're starting fresh here for 2024. Last year, it was definitely a race down to the last couple weeks of the season. With our picks, if you used either of us, you were in the money at the end of the year. We did you good. So we're looking to probably do that again. So let's go ahead here and take a look at the games coming up. These are games that are going to be played on the 31st of August on Saturday. Um, Big games coming up here. We're going to circle a few, and here's the first one I'm going to start out with. Uh, a dandy, by the way, a dandy of a game. It's North Dakota State and Colorado. Colorado 9.5-point favorites at home against the Bison of North Dakota State. Zach, where are you going here with this one?
I'm actually gonna go North Dakota State.
North Dakota State
I'm
money
picking them.
line.
I'm picking them. I'm picking them to outright win this
Picking
football
them
game.
straight up. Is
Yeah, I think that they are going to beat this Colorado team. I think this Colorado team is overrated as ever. I'm not a believer. Obviously, they're a talented team. They have some talent, but North Dakota State is a better football team than people realize. This is a team that has routinely run the FCS. And I think that they are going to give Colorado, they're going to punch Colorado in the mouth early, and I don't know if Colorado can recover. At the very least, I'm picking North Dakota State and the Bison to cover that 9.5-point spread that I'm looking at.
yeah, I mean, so Zach's gonna go ahead and take NDSU money line. Is that what you want to go with here at plus 75? That
We're doing it.
I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go Colorado minus the point. Um, I I think that people are kind of blowing this out of proportion. I think there's a reason India's using the FCS. I know they've scared some teams in the past, but this is a different group of Bison. They had a big class last year leave, a lot of new faces on this North Dakota State team, and I think that it's just kind of a big moment for Deion Sanders and company, and I think they get the job done here. I think this is a 14-point victory for Colorado. I think they get it done early. I think this one's out of hand early, and I think a lot of people will be upset that this game wasn't better by the end of the first. At the end of the whistle here.
Yeah, I mean, I wish you were more of a hater, but hey, that's how it goes.
I trust me. I don't think this Colorado team is going to be anything special like a playoff team or anything, but I think they're going bowling at least this year, and I think it'll be a better season than last year for them. And I think this is what's going to get started on the right foot. And I think that's kind of where we're going to see them headed. Is it 6-6, 7-5, something like that?
All right, well, I can agree with that. What are we looking at?
Next one I've got on the list here, and I know you're excited about this one, because it's it's your team. It's your team. It's Oklahoma minus 43 against the Temple Owls. Over under here is 59 points. What do we think here for this 11 o'clock kick on a Friday?
I think that for me, I'm looking at this team, this OU team. I will be in the stadium actually for this game against Temple, and I'm thinking I'm taking OU to win by 43. I'm taking the 43, and I think we're going to win by probably 50-ish points.
All right, I like it. I like it. I like it. I like the confidence. That's what I like. That's what I like the most is confidence. Look, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just pick the under 59 here. Uh, I think
Okay.
this is going to be, a little bit. I think this is going to hinge on a little bit better defense. Temple's got a decent defensive line. They're going to be a good measuring stick for where this offensive line is going to start the season. It's not going to be so easy. They've got a big tackle up front that's pretty good. So we'll see if he can continue to be a problem. I know that it shouldn't be a problem, but it'll be a good it won't be a snooze fest for the boys up front. And I think that's going to put a little bit of pressure on Jackson Arnold, maybe for some incompletions, maybe some first game jitters. But in the end, um, will they cover? I think maybe a 38-point win, 38, 35, 38. I don't think they cover the 43. I think a lot of these spreads have been kind of blown out of proportion, and I don't think Temple is as bad as people think. I watched their spring game; it looked okay, nothing special. Their quarterback is not good, so I think the defense of OU might show out, and maybe we see some defensive touchdowns here. In the opening week for the Sooners, I think that I wouldn't be surprised to see some pick sixes or some fumbles returned for scores that could help, in Zach's case, cover that 43.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna see. We're gonna see a good mix of score. I think we see at least 2 defensive touchdowns.
I like that. I like that a lot. Let's head a little bit to the afternoon slate here. West Virginia, Penn State on Saturday. The other games we just mentioned are going to be played on Friday. So here's the first games for Saturday. It's West Virginia and Penn State. West Virginia plus 8.5. Penn State favored by 8.5. The over/under here 51.5. What do you think about this game out in Morgantown to start the season for the Nittany Lions?
I think people are blowing West Virginia a little bit out of proportion here.
It's me.
I don't think this team is not going to be too good. It's you. It's also Nick Saban and Pat McAfee on ESPN. I mean, obviously they are both from actual Mountaineers, which made sense. Now I feel that Penn State is just the better team. I'm picking Penn State to probably win by at least 10 here. I'm seeing an 8.5-point spread. I don't like it. I like West Virginia. I think Penn State is going to win this, but however, I'm picking the under on 51.5. I think that's a crazy high line for this game. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. I think we're probably looking at this is probably going to be like a 17-7 type game.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you that it's not going to be very high scoring. I've got the Penn State money line. Look, I talked West Virginia up a lot. If you look at our Big 12 video, and I actually picked them to win this game in that video. But I think the Nick Saban and Pat McAfee thing threw me off. I think that was it. I was like, once you got the backing of those two guys, I got to jump ship. I can't do it. I think once you have people like that believing in teams like this, I think that's where you find the problem. So give me Penn State money line. The Nittany Lions are winning this thing. It's going to be ugly. But I think they get the win. I think this game is going to be close. I think that Pat McAfee and Nick Saban are almost going to be right. But I kind of believe what you're saying. This is going to be a low-scoring game that I think Penn State pulls out in the end. But I think Garrett Green's going to have a shot. There's going to be a shot late for West Virginia to take the lead or tie it, and they're just going to make a mistake or not be able to get it done. Penn State's going to drive down and put the thing away.
Yeah, it's possible, but yeah, I think Penn State's just too much of a better team here.
And speaking of couch lock, here's another couch lock for you. Clemson, Georgia at 4 o'clock Eastern. This game is Georgia minus 13.5. The over-under here, 49. I'm going to go ahead and toss this over to you, Zach. Is this just no doubt in your mind, Georgia minus 13.5? How you feeling?
I'm feeling Georgia minus 13.5. I don't see anything that kind of jumps out at me for Clemson, right? I'm thinking this is a team that's kind of scared to use NIL the way that they're supposed to, and they're probably going to get just outmatched in the trenches because of it, because you have to pay for the big men now, and they are not actually doing that, I think. I'm taking Georgia. Now, Clemson, I think, is a great team. I think they're going to do fine this season. They probably could make the playoffs as the third ACC team, I think, if that were to happen. Or they could even make the playoffs as the second ACC team if they were to make the conference championship. I don't think they win the ACC, but this is Georgia. What are we talking about? This is a team that, depending on if they vacate Michigan's title, has a legit kind of a claim to have a three-peat. That's crazy, by the way, that the NCAA is kind of starting to investigate Michigan for that sign stealing stuff. People are already saying who gets the natty.
Yeah, who?
Either Washington, I think it's either Washington, Bama, Florida State, or Georgia. That's the tough part, but probably Georgia. Now the question for this one, I'm definitely taking Georgia minus 13.5. I think they win this by at least 14. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think Clemson. I just claim Clemson's okay. They're not great, and I think Georgia gets it done. 17-point win. Give me the minus 13.5. And that will lead us into a game that a lot of people are talking about around these parts, but I think it should be talked about more. It's South Dakota State and Oklahoma State in Stillwater. The Cowboys only a 10-point favorite over the Jackrabbits, who are one of those powerhouses like Montana State of the FCS. Another Big Sky opponent. Um, your thoughts?
I mean, it would be really funny if South Dakota State wins. Those are my thoughts. Being an OU fan and not being a huge fan of Stillwater, but I do think that Oklahoma State wins this game. I think that they probably definitely cover the 10-point spread. I'm high on OSU this year.
All right, I like it. I like the pick. I can definitely see them taking care of business at home. That being said, I'm like a rat jumping the ship early. Give me South Dakota State straight up. Give me the Jackrabbits to ruin the season week 1.
Wow, this is insane.
This is it right here. Give me the Jackrabbits. I'm jacked up. I'm jacked up, baby.
He's jacking off.
I'm jacked up, baby. I think they get it done. I think this is going to be one of those games where, again, I believe South Dakota State has more likelihood to upset Oklahoma State than North Dakota State does to beat Colorado. That's how I feel That's how I feel about this. I think that last year I got a little bit too comfortable with Oklahoma State, especially their non-conference. I really thought they were going to just roll through that, and that was not the case as South Alabama kicked them in the teeth. Central Arkansas gave them a tough bout all the way through. Of course, the rotating quarterbacks didn't help them at all as far as Oklahoma State's concerned, but those are teams you should beat no matter which quarterback on your depth chart is quarterbacking those teams, because you've got Ollie Gordon at the halfback position, and Mike Gundy's come out and said he'll at least have 20 touches a game, no matter what week it is, which is what he thinks he needs to possibly be a Heisman candidate and another Doak Walker Award winner possibly. But I think South Dakota State's ready for that. I think they're going to load the box. I think they're going to force Alan Bowman to throw the football. And I think as far as South Dakota State's offense is concerned, they can move the football against this Oklahoma State defense. This defense has got some good players on it, but it's not overall what you would classify as a good defense. If I had to rate it out of 100, I'd say their defense is probably an 80-ish, and I think that South Dakota State's offense is probably like a 77, 78, and that's going to be enough to move the football. And if Oklahoma State makes mistakes, which I think Alan Bowman could make some mistakes early, Jackrabbits win. I think they steal one.
Wow, what a bold pick. What a bold pick. I would love to see it happen.
Yeah, one more to go here.
I have a great one.
Give us one to hear to give us a banger here to end it.
Texas and Colorado State. We got the line here. Texas minus 32.5 with the total game coming at a 59.5 total. I'm honestly taking Colorado State to cover. I don't think Texas is going to beat them by that much. I'm looking at this as probably a 27, 28, maybe a 21-point win, maybe even a 30-point win, but 32.5, I don't know if they can win by just that much. I'm also probably going to go ahead and take the over on this game total here, this point total, 59.5. Listen, this Texas team, they have weapons on offense. They always will, but defense, honestly, as people think, they're in the trenches. I don't think they can, really pressure the quarterback as well as people think.
Yeah, I think that's kind of right. I'm also going to pick Colorado State plus the 32.5. I think this is a too big of a line. I think that Texas probably wins this game, but I think it's more like, I don't know, like 42-28. Something that looks more comfortable than it probably is. 42-21. I mean, something that's I think at halftime it's going to be close. It's going to be like 21 to 14 at halftime, and then second half just nothing but Texas probably running away with it. I think their talent, even with the lack of running backs, is better than what Colorado State can throw out there. I think the big game for Colorado State is against Colorado the next.
Obviously.
A little bit more winnable for the Rams. So there you go. You have our first picks of the year. Use them or lose them. we're definitely we're in here. We are in here, and we are ready to give you picks for the rest of the season. Enjoy your weekend. As we send it to you, uh, we're ready. Football season is here, Zach. Anything else to add?
It's time. Get your tailgating ready. Drink some beers.
Right, baby. Drink those beers, baby. That's right. Down on while you got 'em. Let's fucking go. Yeah, for all of us here at the sports, St0ner Sports Radio Studios here, we're locking it up for you. That's your SEC Part 2. That's your first week of picks. We'll be back to recap the picks, recap week 1 of fantastic college football. It's here, folks, and we're so happy that you could be joining us here for the ride. Keep stick on the ice.
Boomer Sooner.